Winnebago County and Oshkosh Media. This event is being simulcast on Oshkosh Radio FM 101.9. Recordings can be found on the Oshkosh Media YouTube page, and replay schedules for government TV can be found on oshkoshmedia.org. I would also refer you to the form that we did before the primary for additional questions. We're not using the same questions tonight that we used during the primary. I am Margie Davey, President of the League and tonight's moderator. The League of Women Voters seeks to inform citizens about major public policy issues and about candidates seeking office. We never support nor oppose any political party or candidate. You can learn how to join at LWVWinnebago.org or by asking any of our members here tonight, and I believe they all have on buttons. They look like campaign buttons, but they're really League buttons. The League holds voter outreach events to help people register to vote, request an absentee ballot, and find their polling place. We also provide information on current issues. We regularly partner with other nonpartisan organizations on events to expand our local reach and meet with school district and government officials to share ideas on how we can best serve our communities. Early in-person absentee voting allows voters who cannot reach their polling place on election day to vote beforehand. Check with your city or town clerk for early voting availability. The League of Women Voters facilitates Vote411.org, an online candidate and voter resource where all candidates for all races are invited to answer questions. When you, the voter, put in your address, you learn which races will be on your ballot, which candidates are running for each office, and candidates' responses to the questions. If there are no responses, that means the candidate chose not to participate. We encourage you then to reach out directly. Candidates are applying for a job, and every voter should know how they plan to do that job. We call this being an informed voter. You can also visit myvote.wi.gov to check your voting status and for more information. Please turn off your electronic devices. No audience recording is allowed. Two candidates are seeking election as the Winnebago County Circuit Court Branch 1 judge for a 6-year term. Lakeisha Hayes and Michael Rust. Incumbent Teresa Basilera is not running for re-election. Joining me on the panel is Karen Schneider, publisher of the Oshkosh Herald and Neenah News. Public questions were solicited in advance. Those of you in the audience may also submit questions on the cards provided. Just wave them in the air and a League member will come take them or bring you one if you need one. Questions must be for both candidates and may not single out a single candidate. Questions may be edited for brevity and clarity, and while we hope to cover as many as we can, we may not have time for all. Candidates, please keep your answers concise so we may cover as many issues as possible. Our timekeeper, who will wave at you right now, will give you cues, so please heed the stop sign so I don't have to cut you off. Concise answers will allow time for more questions. This is not a debate. You will each be given the same amount of time for each question. So now we'll begin with our opening statements. You now have 2 minutes to summarize your background, qualifications, and your motivation for seeking election as Branch 1 judge. Why should voters choose you over your opponent? And going alphabetically, that's a big word. We'll start with you, Lakeisha.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Lakeisha Hayes. I am currently a trial attorney or litigation attorney. I also serve on the City of Oshkosh Common Council. I have over an 18-year career in the courtroom, beginning shortly after I graduated from the University of Wisconsin-Oshkosh with my bachelor's degree, when I worked as a court assistant for the Honorable Tom Gritton, who was the judge of Branch 1. I served as his court assistant, eventually worked my way up to the judicial assistant for Branch 4, and then I headed off to law school, where I obtained my degree from Marquette Law School. While in law school, I had a varied experience. I worked with legal action in family law, AIDS Resource Center of Wisconsin, doing estate planning and end-of-life planning, also civil litigation and civil rights litigation. I returned to this area after law school to pursue a career in criminal law, which I did that for 8 years through the Public Defender's Office, serving the indigent, the underserved, and eventually transitioned into private practice, where I continued with criminal law, added on family law, and civil litigation. My motivation for running is because I have served as a judge here in Winnebago County. I did that well. I did that without ever being overturned. I did that while supervising court commissioners and raising my family here in Winnebago County. I do believe that the judiciary should be made up of those that are most qualified in their field and those that are experts, and that is me.
Thank you, Lakeisha. Michael?
Thank you. My name is Michael Rust, and I am running for Winnebago County Circuit Court Branch 1 because I believe in the importance of the neutrality of the judiciary. I have been a professional neutral for the last 12 years. Judges should not be making rulings based off their own personal biases. They should not be trying to make changes to the law from the bench. Judges are there to apply the law to the facts. And my experience as a professional neutral makes me ideally situated to be that neutral decision maker for the facts, and then applying the law as it was written and as it needs to be applied. My career has been about helping people resolve conflicts. So I was a I currently serve as a circuit court commissioner for Winnebago County. I have been in that role for 19 months. And before that, for almost 10 years, I ran the Winnebago Conflict Resolution Center. And in those roles, I am serving as a neutral and helping people resolve conflicts. I've chosen to move forward with my career and seek election as judge for Winnebago County because this is another form of conflict resolution. And I believe in the importance of helping people resolve conflicts, including those that need to be decided by a judge. Thank you.
Thank you. Now we'll move into the public questions, ones that have been submitted beforehand or that you're submitting tonight. We'll ask public policy questions, and you have 1.5 minutes to respond to each question, so 90 seconds. Karen, why don't you take the first question?
Okay, happy to. We'll start with you, Michael. Please share where you're currently employed. Now, some of these you touched on in your opening statements, but this will give us a little more information. Please share where you're currently employed and how this experience will benefit you if elected.
So I currently serve as Circuit Court Commissioner for Winnebago County. In that role, I have my courtroom in the courthouse, and I have a full calendar of cases stemming from family court to guardianships, as well as all restraining orders and small claims trials for Winnebago County. I will also serve in the role as Judicial Court Commissioner, and so I will sit in for the other court commissioner when necessary, when perhaps he has a conflict. And so I've had an opportunity to sit in on tickets, on criminal bonds, as well as many other types of cases. And so based off of the vast array of types of cases that I've been able to work on and rule upon, I believe that I am ideally situated to serve as judge for Winnebago County.
Thank you. Lakeisha?
Thank you. Currently, I'm a litigation attorney. I practice both in state and federal court, civil litigation, employment law, and civil rights law. In my current practice, and even prior to being appointed to the bench, I worked in several different counties throughout the state of Wisconsin. I worked with several different organizations and several different communities in which it was advocating for the rights of others. It was serving the indigent, and it also allowed me to work with a diverse set of people. That is important because as a member of the judiciary, you will be overseeing general jurisdiction law. And so that means that every type of case that comes before before Winnebago County would come before you. You need to be able to communicate express yourself, understand the law, the rules of procedure, the rules of evidence. But you also need to be able to communicate with diverse groups. You also need to be able to represent the judiciary and do so with transparency, integrity, and ethics. And that is how I lead every single day of my life. And so a transition onto the bench would not be difficult for me.
Thank you.
Okay, the next question, we'll start with you, Lakeisha. How will you serve the community, including the various vulnerable populations in Winnebago County?
I am lucky that I've had such an immense opportunity to serve the community to date. I'm involved in several organizations, SAPO, serving right here in Winnebago County in Wisconsin. I'm also on the advisory committee for Hope Fridge. I serve on the board of trustees for the Pain Arts Center. I also volunteer with the Winnebago area free legal clinic, one of the things that I will not be able to do once I'm on the judiciary. But what I have done is chosen to serve my community in other ways besides within the law, so that there is never a conflict if I were to take the bench or if I were to take a case. I will continue to serve my community in those capacities, being aware of the ethical obligations that I have, that there are definitely no conflicts. But I always believe that there are so many needs in our community that can be met, and we should try to touch upon those in our lifetime. And we should make sure that we are living our life in a way that is beneficial and progressing our community. And that is how I'll do, that is exactly what I'll do when I'm on the bench. I did it before. I won't have a problem doing it now.
Thank you. Michael?
Prior to taking the bench as court commissioner, I was very involved in the community. I think that community involvement is the way that a judicial officer can make change in our community. And I'm proud of the many organizations that I have served and continue to serve with throughout Winnebago County. I have been the president of the Rotary Club of Oshkosh. I still am a member of the Rotary Club of Oshkosh. As part of the Rotary Club, we are constantly finding ways to volunteer in the community and give back and make this community a better place. I served as the president of the Oshkosh Area United Way's Board of Directors. I am also the founder and co-organizer of TEDx Oshkosh, which puts on an annual conference under license from the TED organization, allowing TED-style talks to come from the local community and having those local ideas be exported to the world. I believe that as a judicial officer, you do have some limitations ethically on what you are allowed to do, on what you're allowed to continue to do. I have been limited based off of my current role in some of the organizations that I previously had volunteered for, but I will continue to work in ways to make this a great place to live and work.
Thank you.
All right, I think we're going to start with you, Michael. What do you anticipate being one of the major issues in this term, and how do you plan on addressing it?
That's an interesting question. The major issues are whatever issue is in front of you. Each individual person and each individual case is the most important case to the people who are involved in the case. There is not one type of case that's more important than another type of case. There is not one type of case that means more than another type of case. The case that's in front of you is the most important case to the people who are involved in the litigation. And treating the people with that level of respect, treating the people with that level of importance, I think is vitally important. And I will treat everyone with that level of respect and importance over my term as the judge for Circuit Court Branch 1. I think that picking and choosing particular issues starts to get into judicial bias, and that is something that I'm vehemently opposed to.
Thank you. Lakeisha?
If I may ask a clarifying question, it was, what do you anticipate would be the major issues in this term? Is the term being the judicial term of 6 years, or is it?
Correct. Being
Okay.
one of the major issues in the term.
Okay. What I know from my experience within the judiciary and as a trial attorney is what has been consistent and persistent is our substance abuse and mental health issues. And I believe that that will continue to be an issue that we will have to address as a judiciary and a community. One of the organizations and groups that I was involved in were huge proponents of treatment courts. And I have done many discussions, led many discussions, talked to different organizations about the need for the judiciary to be able to evaluate and use alternatives to incarceration, and those alternatives should include treatment. We should no longer have a society in which we are incarcerating those who are suffering from mental health illness because we are incapable of determining that it's mental health, and it scares us. It has to be addressed. We have prisons that are overflowing because of mental health, and yet people are not getting treatment. That is going to be a consistent issue here, and we've seen it here in Winnebago County. Also, the substance abuse issues. While we are acknowledging that it is an issue, I think that we also have to come up with alternatives and ways that we can treat the underlying issue and not just treat the crime.
Thank you.
Okay, we're going to start with you, Lakeisha. This works out so well, right? We just, two of you, two of us. What is your philosophy on accountability, equity, and fairness from the bench?
My position is that due to the nature of the position, the responsibilities that the judiciary has in making decisions that greatly impact people's lives, they should be held accountable not only by the commissions that oversee us as judiciary, but also by our colleagues. And if we do not have a judiciary in which we are holding each other accountable, we run the risk in which we have someone who is believing that they are too powerful, that they have to answer to anyone, they don't have to answer to anyone, and they exercise exactly that which with every dealing that they have with individuals. I believe we should stand up and we should speak out. I've been known to do that. What I don't think is appropriate is that we have a judiciary who is deciding that as a whole, they will protect one by harming an entire community.
Thank you. Michael?
I do think that accountability is vitally important, and that's why I serve on the Office of Lawyer Regulations Board of Administrative Oversight. I was appointed to that position by the Wisconsin Supreme Court to oversee the entire Office of Lawyer Regulation system. The Office of Lawyer Regulation is the entity that accepts ethics complaints, as well as investigates those complaints and prosecutes attorneys who violate the ethical rules. I think that accountability is vitally important, and I'm constantly pushing the OLR for additional ways to find those who are not living up to their ethical requirements as attorneys. I also think that the importance of that accountability does not stop when someone becomes a judicial officer. I believe that judges do need to be held accountable and should be held accountable for their actions. And I will continue to work for that as well.
Thank you.
We're coming back to you, Michael. When should legal precedents be revisited?
The importance of the legal precedent is that parties and attorneys need to have some faith and trust in the judiciary. The role of a circuit court judge is not one to overturn the law. The role of the circuit court judge is to apply the law to the facts of the case. Determine the facts, apply the law. The Court of Appeals, the role of the Court of Appeals is to correct errors of the circuit court. It's the role of the Supreme Court to set policy and change the law. It is not the role of the Court of Appeals. It is not the role of the circuit court judge to be changing the law on their own whim.
Thank you. Lakeisha?
Can you repeat the question, please?
Yes. When should legal precedents be revisited?
I would agree with Mr. Ross that at the circuit level, The role of the judiciary is to, and the role of, at every level, is to apply the law to the circumstances before you. What I do know is that the law and individuals in our society needs to be able to rely upon laws and know the expectations of, at least know what to expect from our judiciary when it comes to ruling on the law. I think it is unfortunate when precedent is revisited because it is politically driven. That is not appropriate. It should never be politically driven whatsoever, and in fact, the judiciary should remain a nonpartisan judiciary. And when we have the goalpost ever changing, and when we have application of laws changing simply based on who you are as an individual, your race, your gender, that is most unfortunate, and that is not how we should be applying the law, and that is not an opportunity or a time in which we should revisit simply because a certain party has decided that they no longer want everyone to have equity and equal rights under the law.
Thank you.
Okay, this goes to you first, Lakeisha. Under what circumstances would you recuse yourself from a case?
Pursuant to the ethical obligations that we have under the judiciary, I would recuse myself if I have any investment in the outcome of a case before me. I would also recuse myself if I have a personal relationship with any of the parties or litigants that are involved. I would also recuse myself if there is the appearance of a conflict. And the appearance of the conflict is even if I feel that I could be completely fair and impartial, what does it look like from the others watching? And the reason that that matters is because people should be able to trust our judiciary. And if it stinks, if it doesn't smell right, if it looks bad, they cannot trust our judiciary. So if it even looks bad, if it looks like you have some invested interest in the outcome of a case, you shouldn't be on it. If you are too close to the litigants, if you're too close to counsel, you should not be on it. And so I think one of the things that is most unfortunate and what we have seen play out in our judiciary is that inability to recuse because of that appearance. I think that sometimes the egos of individuals get in place and get in the way of realizing that the ethical requirements are multifold, and you must go through the complete analysis when determining if you should recuse yourself.
Thank you. Michael?
It is true that there are specific statutes and specific judicial ethical rules with regards to the requirements of recusal on cases. And within those statutes and ethical guidelines, it is required that a judge will recuse themselves when there is a conflict or when there is the appearance of a conflict. And I think that both components of that test do have to be satisfied in order for the judge to continue on with the case. And so I would recuse myself if I had a conflict with the party, with a lawyer who was representing a party in the case, or if there was some other connection with the case that made that conflict apparent. I also would absolutely recuse myself if there was a situation where it appeared that I had a conflict. I may not actually have that conflict, but the appearance is important. People do not trust the judiciary when the judiciary does not act in a transparent and open manner, and I will do just that.
Thank you. Our last question, Karen, it's yours.
All right, and it's coming to you, Michael. Judicial candidates are sometimes described as being soft on crime, tough on crime, but what does just right on crime look like to you?
So just right on crime is an important question because there is a misnomer that people will utilize the soft on crime or hard on crime in order to attempt to make political accusations at another candidate. I'm not running for this role to be political. I am running for this role because I believe that I am the best candidate for a judge. I believe that holding people accountable for the crimes that they commit is extremely important. I also think that treatment is extremely important. People do need to have treatment. I was a founding member of the Restorative Justice Initiative. I was hand-selected for that role by former Wisconsin Supreme Court Justice Janine Geske. In that role, we worked through victim offender mediations and worked through the process of helping offenders understand the ripple effects of their crime on the community as well as on the victims and their families. And I believe that there is more that can be learned by an offender than just going to jail. But people do have to also pay for the crimes that they commit for the community.
Thank you.
Perfect timing.
That concludes the questions for tonight. Oh,
Lakeisha
no, it doesn't.
needs to
We're
go,
going to let
yes.
Lakeisha
Yes.
answer that. Sorry, dear.
I want my opportunity to get the bell at the end. My goal this time is to go to the very end. No. Perfect on crime. So there is, in fact, statutory authority and case law that deals with this. The bulk of the cases that are within Winnebago County are criminal law cases. And when I say the bulk of those cases, understanding that it's court of general jurisdiction, I would say it's probably about 70%. And so that 70% of your caseload every day is dealing with criminal law, an area in which I believe myself to be an expert in. And what I do know is that statutory authority and case law tells you that there is an analysis that the court must go through in order to determine the appropriate sentence on a criminal matter. That is the nature of the offense. The sentence must be one that does not unduly depreciate the seriousness of the offense. You're also to look at the need for rehabilitation of the defendant, and you're also to take into consideration any of the other mitigating factors that the defendant has, as well as, at times, the past criminal record. What case law does not tell us to do, and what statutory authority does not tell us to do, is to take any other considerations or apply any other considerations based on your own biases, whatever those biases may be. I think we are well aware that we have a history of criminalizing, penalizing, and incarcerating many individuals. And unfortunately, we have done so, and it has been inappropriate. Oh, I really wanted it.
Well,
I felt like it was
Lakeisha,
a little bit of a filibuster.
I'm going to give you another minute to say anything you want, but be aware this is your additional statement for the evening. Go ahead.
All right. Thank you. Again, one of the things that as I go around our community speaking with individuals is I'm often asked about why do I say that there has to be transparency? And I say that there has to be transparency because we know that historically there has not been our judiciary. I lead my life in a way of transparency. I lead my life in a way in which I love a community, I'm involved in a community, and I'm hoping to leave a great impact on the great impact on the community. Transparency is important to me because I think that it's important that you get to know the individuals in your community. You get to be able to rely upon them. They rely upon you, but they also know when they have their local elections and they have those who have been so involved in their community, running for local election because they are so committed to their community, they recognize that. When I say transparency, this is not something that I do or that I'm doing or being involved in our community simply for election. This is something I've been committed to doing since 1996 when I arrived in Oshkosh from Franklin, Wisconsin to attend college. I'm not stopping.
Thank you. You did it.
Got it.
Michael, 1 minute.
Judicial officers have to be neutral, but they also have to have the right mindset as well as the right temperament for the role. People do have bad days in court. The courtroom is not a happy place most of the time. Most of the time, I have people in front of me on what is likely the worst day of their life. And treating people with that compassion and that respect to understand that they are there on the worst day of their life, that they may not be telling me in the way that they would if we were just hanging out at a barbecue or if we were just meeting on the street, but that they're telling me in the worst day of their life how this has impacted them, what they're trying to get through. It's vitally important that I have the grace and I have the ability to listen to victims as well as the parties, and that I can apply the law to the facts of the case in a calm and appropriate way. And so with that, I'm asking for people's vote.
Thank you. Okay, this concludes the forum for Winnebago County Circuit Court Branch 1. On Tuesday, April 2nd, you may vote for one of these judicial candidates, Michael Rust or Lakeisha Hayes. The polls are open from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. Everyone must show a voter ID with a picture on it. You may register when you go to vote on Election Day. If you need to, take a proof of residence with you. On behalf of the League of Women Voters of Winnebago County, I want to thank everyone for participating in this forum. Thank you, Karen, for helping me up here. Thank you, candidates, for being here. And thank our volunteers in the back there that nobody ever sees. Remember, our democracy depends on citizen involvement, so please vote on April 2nd. And we'll resume in just a few minutes with the forum for the Oshkosh City Council.